Helmut Marko, Red Bull's chief Formula One advisor, believes Mercedes' recent flashes of potential mean the team will be a threat in the 2022 World Championship. Despite the fact that Mercedes, an 8-time consecutive Constructors' champion, is currently 101 points behind Red Bull after 7 races, Marko still considers it dangerous due to the quick lap times its cars have occasionally been able to unleash. Red Bull's points leader Max Verstappen is 41 points ahead of top Mercedes driver George Russell and 75 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton. But Marko is concerned about the radical W13 car's potential, especially after updates in Barcelona. Speaking of Mercedes, we have seen every now and then they are able to post incredibly fast laps, both in practice and in the race, and they do it with both drivers. They still can't do it consistently, so it's hard to understand where that performance comes from, and talking to some well-informed people, it turned out they probably don't even know in the team. What worries us is the potential seems to be there, and once they manage to make it consistent over the distance of a race, they'll be there to play for the win. When asked if he believed Mercedes had been sandbagging its speed all season, he replied, "No, it's not a bluff. The bluff was where they had this weird engine advantage, and last year the Hamilton engine. There they were bluffing hard, so I don't believe that. And it's really incredibly hard to understand where this car is incredibly fast. They're the fastest in the field at one stage, but it doesn't last long. What exactly changes there? Why they can't drive that continuously is just, thank God, still the problem, I would say." The root cause of Mercedes' poor performance at the start of the 2022 Formula One season was one specific issue: porpoising. That major hurdle is being cleared, but Mercedes' 2022 car still has limitations that must be addressed if either Lewis Hamilton or George Russell are to have a realistic chance of winning races this season. Mercedes suffered a major setback after overcoming its porpoising issue in Spain, when it was hampered by a different type of bouncing in Monaco. Monaco's low speed and bumpy nature emphasizes several key areas: ride quality, aerodynamic load, and mechanical grip. After Mercedes performed so well in the high-speed sections of the Barcelona track, Monaco was an excellent test of other car characteristics, and the W13 failed. At the start of the weekend, the car was bottoming out, and at the ride height required to avoid the worst of that, it simply wasn't producing enough downforce. Its ride quality remains poor, which appears to be due to the car's inherent stiffness. This was something that drivers had mentioned as early as the first pre-season test in Spain, and the first significant improvements Mercedes will make since resolving the porpoising issue should include efforts to improve the car's ride quality. Even though Mercedes in Monaco knew its car still had inherent flaws, the extent of the problem was worse than expected. Mercedes has made little progress in addressing its flaws because it has spent all of its time and attention on curing the porpoising. Russell summarized the areas that still need to be improved as follows: "We just need to find a bit more downforce. We haven't been awfully competitive in low-speed corners. In Barcelona, we were the quickest in the high speed and down the straights, the complete opposite to what Monaco offers. We need to find a bit more pace in qualifying. We can't afford to keep having Alpine or McLaren jump us." Simply put, Mercedes must now develop a more mechanical and aerodynamic platform. More load and a more stable car will allow the drivers to attack more aggressively, while also alleviating the chronic tyre warm-up issues that have plagued Mercedes on several occasions this year. As Russell mentioned, this is a significant factor in qualifying. Despite clearly having the third fastest car, especially in races, Mercedes has found another team between its lead car and the Ferraris and Red Bulls in 5 of the 7 races so far. And the gap between the top 2 teams on qualifying pace remains significant, regardless of whether the circuit favors the W13 or not. The truth is, whether it's a good weekend like Spain or a difficult one like Monaco, Mercedes is so far behind Red Bull and Ferrari that it won't challenge. Toto Wolff, Mercedes team boss, has called the team's current pace deficit a huge annoyance, which is probably an understatement. In the best-case scenario, he believes Mercedes is a half-second slower in qualifying with its current car. In the worst-case scenario, it's 0.8 of a mile away. In any case, Wolff calls it unacceptable. The caveat here is that Mercedes should close that gap as it improves its vehicle performance, and it should have some low-hanging fruit with its initial development. However, there is still some doubt about the car's ultimate potential, especially given the underlying issues, such as its stiffness. It's worth noting that clever hydraulic suspension trickery has been banned until 2022. This was an area where Mercedes previously excelled, such as the inertia dampers used front and rear on last year's car to control bouncing while the springs themselves had very little travel. Other teams appear to have been more inventive in coming up with new solutions, with Russell particularly envious of how well the Ferrari rides curbs and bumps at all tracks. So, how far can Mercedes get with the 2022 car depends on how much it needs to be changed. And Mercedes is still being questioned about the current concept, as well as whether the focus should shift to preparing a different design for 2023. Mercedes' response remains that this will be valid only if the conclusion is that an architectural or aerodynamic change is required that cannot be implemented on the current car. According to Wolff, that point has yet to be reached. What is clear is that the W13 still requires significant improvement. When asked if he would prefer Mercedes to shift resources and focus to 2023, Hamilton stated, "We have to figure out what's wrong with this car before we can make another car. If we just started making another car, we could easily get it wrong. Getting on top of this one fully, which we haven't yet, will give us a guideline. There's definitely loads of things that I not want from this car for next year's car." Mercedes will be looking for another performance boost as F1 heads to Baku for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. According to Mark Schurer, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell may end up going backwards this weekend. The former racing driver described Mercedes' porpoising solution as replacing one problem with another. "You have to drive this stiff suspension to stop the porpoising. That means the car is sprung so hard that it doesn't start bouncing on the straights. They obviously got that under control to some extent. But now, of course, they're losing with this tough setup in the corners, and Baku is just a street circuit. It also goes up and down a bit, and there are bumps there. I can't imagine that the Mercedes will do great there." But while some predict the Mercedes will fail again in Baku, world champion Emerson Fittipaldi believes things will change this weekend. "George Russell is definitely going to do well in Baku. Mercedes is improving quite a lot. Lewis Hamilton's car has been doing well for the last 2 Grand Prix, and I think he'll continue to be stronger and come back strong in Baku. It will be great to see George Russell challenge Lewis Hamilton throughout the whole year. All the racing fans are watching that closely. Lewis is going to come strong now. It will be great to see." Nonetheless, we can't deny that Lewis Hamilton in particular has had a difficult start to the season. The 7-time champion has also struggled to keep up with new teammate George Russell in the first 7 races. Many have questioned Hamilton's future in the sport, with a record-breaking 8th world title seemingly out of reach this year. However, ahead of the Monaco Grand Prix, Hamilton responded to doubters with a simple 4-word response when asked how long he planned to stay in the sport. "Why should I stop?" On his future, the 37-year-old also stated, "Let's take this season. I probably won't win the title, but I feel the same pleasure of competing as when I started. Maybe one day I won't be able to take the pressure anymore. I'll be tired, but that day hasn't come yet." What are your thoughts on Lewis Hamilton's future at Mercedes and in the sport in general? Do you think he'll retire anytime soon? Helmut Marko appears to be concerned about a possible Mercedes comeback. Do you believe he is being realistic? We'd love to hear from you in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please consider subscribing and liking to the channel. And don't forget to click the bell button to be notified of future videos.